Kelly here, and I'm back with another video. Today's video is another review of alcohol markers. So these are the OLO markers. I have seen people using them all throughout the craft industry. I knew I wanted to try them. And so I reached out to a friend of mine who worked for Copics for years and now works with this company to kind of pick her brain about it. And then I went in and made my selection. So this is what they sent me. OLO currently has a 128 color palette. They have mapped out all of their future colors. They just aren't all released currently. And so these are so different. They're so different from anything else that's on the market. So let's talk about that. First of all, you might notice how small they are. This is because OLO is almost completely customizable. So you can go in and purchase full-size markers, or you can go in and purchase half markers. That's what you're seeing here. So when I went in and decided to make my purchase, I opted to purchase the 64-piece set of the half brush, like the half marker brush nibs. You can buy a full marker with a brush nib and a chisel nib. You can buy two brushes. You can buy two chisels. So it's very, very customizable. So I knew that I would use the brush markers, and then they send you, in my set, they sent me these little connector pieces. So there's 64 markers. They sent me 32 connectors. And then you put them together to make a full marker. So if you buy a whole marker, then both colors are the same on each end. But if you do what I did to save some money, which is buy the half markers, then you have one color on one side and one color on the other side. Now I have this one extra here because in addition to the 64-piece set, I also purchased some grays. So it left me with one kind of odd man out. But that was my own doing. So here, this is the full color palette. These are all 64 colors. I felt like it was such a good array of colors. And now you guys are stuck with another original illustration because, as I've told you in previous reviews, I don't want this to be associated with any other company that I work with. So I will be drawing my own illustration here while we talk. So the reason, besides the half markers, which we'll get into pricing and stuff here in a minute, besides the half markers, the thing that is completely different from any other marker, any other alcohol marker on the market is they actually have a free flowing ink. And what does that mean? So think back to like when you were a kid, or if you currently have kids, like the Crayola marker, when you would pop the top off the back and then inside was like the tubing with the felt that contained the ink. That is still how the vast majority of markers on the market work. And because of that, it absorbs something like 35% of the ink that you put in. So when you're purchasing refills and you're refilling your marker, that felt is absorbing it. And so you're only using like 65 to 70% of the ink that you have in the marker or that you refill the marker with. With the OLO markers, because there is no felt piece and it is free-flowing ink, you use 90% of the ink that is in your marker. Obviously, getting more out of what you're purchasing, which also means their refill system is completely different. So traditionally, with a Copic, or any other marker, you would purchase a refill and then you would kind of like drip, drip, drip your ink in there. Because these are free-flowing, the cartridges are self-contained, which means you don't actually buy a refill and refill it yourself. You buy a cartridge and the replacement cartridge. So let's talk some pricing. So a full-size marker from OLO, meaning that there's like a brush and a chisel or a brush and a brush, you get what I'm saying, is $7.49. So again, this is not a budget marker. But because it gives you the half marker option, the half marker for a brush nib is $4.10. The half marker for a chisel nib is $3.39. And a replacement cartridge, when you run out of ink of a certain color, is $2.69. And it's like having a whole new half marker because you just replace the nib. So you pull out the cartridge, swap the nibs, and you're good to go. There's no waiting for the ink to drip down or anything like that. So I think that's super cool. Now, you may be saying to yourself, Kelly, if I buy a half marker, I'm only going to get half the ink. No. Isn't that so cool? So typically, a regular size Copic carries 1.8 milliliters of ink. A Copic Chow carries 1.4 milliliters of ink. In every half marker of an OLO marker, there's 2 milliliters of ink. So if you buy a marker that has a brush and a chisel nib as like a whole marker, you're getting 4 milliliters of ink. So by buying the half, you're actually saving on plastic if you're environmentally conscious. You're saving on the plastic, and then you're getting this even more ink than you would with a full-sized Copic, which is so super cool. So as you can see, I'm going through, I am working on my regular Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock. I did, my friend did give me kind of a heads up and say, these markers are a little bit juicier, and so you might have to adjust the paper that you're working on. But in order for it to be a true review for me, I wanted to use it on the paper that I'm used to using to see how it worked. So I am drawing this up. I am going in with a fine liner and outlining everything. This is safe for alcohol markers. And then we're going to go in and start with the coloring. Before we get into the coloring, if you are super interested in these, very generously, they have given me a discount code. So it's for 10% off with the code Kelly, all lowercase. I will link it below on YouTube. And so you can get 10% off to try them. They have sets that you can buy, or you can buy individual markers, whichever you're kind of into. And because that's what I did. I bought the set, but then I went in and bought the grays individually because I knew that I would want them for my collection because that's what I like. So then we will get into kind of like the same kind of testing I did before. I will say that this did kind of throw me having one color on one side and one color on the other side. But I imagine if I used them regularly, like I use my Copics or my sketch markers, that I would get used to which ones went with which. But so here I just picked a couple of reds and, kind of tested those out to see how they blended. Everything blended really nicely. I didn't have any issues. I would say this is certainly comparable to any other alcohol markers I have used on the market. And then I wanted to see how the color families blended together. So one of the things with the Copic system that has always confused people is the numbering system. And so they also have a numbering system. So let's talk about this. The first letter is the color family. Okay, so you have a V for violet, an RV for red, violet, B for blue, B, you get the point. One of the main differences with OLO is there is no, Copic uses E for earth tones. They did not do that. They chose to go with, O for oranges and things like that. So that's the color family. The first number represents the hue. So the hue within a color family is its true pigment, like its most pure form. And then the second number is the value, is the light, the mid-tone, or the dark. For these, the lower the number, so like a 0 through a 3 is the lights, 4 through 6s are midtones, 7 through 9s are darks. And that is how that's just the general breakdown of the color family. So when you look at them, you should be able to look at a G03 and know that it is going to be a very light green. So here, as you can see, I'm going out, I am blending the colors together, I am layering the colors in what I like to call color glazing because alcohol markers are transparent. I'm messing around with these to see the general color scheme in which I want to go, because the flowers that I drew are certainly, gladioluses do not grow in a wreath style, but that was the flower I was going for. That was the flower I was going for. And so I did a little bit of Googling to see what the color schemes were that I liked. And I liked the kind of coral ones with pink edges. And then they had kind of coral ones with like a hot pinkish purple center. And I thought that those would be really great to practice with. So I did go in and I colored my normal way, which is lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest. And I didn't have a huge amount of bleeding. I expected, when I talked to my friend and she had given me the advice to try different paper, I had expected that it was kind of going to be wild and crazy. But it really wasn't. Even with as much ink as I was putting down, it wasn't really too crazy with the bleeding. I did notice more on the color glazing portion where I had already put down a bunch of ink and then I went to put another color on top of it. That's where I got the majority of my bleeding. But I guess in the future I would know that, and so then I would just start with my darkest color, go out to my lightest, and then glaze my color over it. So I won't pretend like there's not going to be a learning curve, because they are a bit of a juicier or a wetter marker than maybe what you're used to working with, or maybe, you know, you overfill your Copics often, and that's something that you're very familiar with, because Lord knows I am. So here I did kind of my red corally colors in the center, and then I brought in some pink on the edges. And again, I had no issues with them blending together. They blended super nicely based on being able to pick them out, you know, from their color family. And then of course, swatching my colors, which I think is super important. But all in all, very happy with the performance of these. And I can definitely see myself using them in the future. I like that for the cost, that instead of, like, I didn't have to spend, $200 for 32 colors. I could spend $200 for 64 colors. I don't actually know if that's how much I spent, by the way. You'll have to double check the website. I'm not sure. Well, I guess I could look for you. So, anywho, I do think that I like that I can use 90% of the ink. I like that the refills are super easy. I like that they do these, what did they just come out with? What are they? I think they're calling them sample packs. If you want to try them, they're doing sample packs. But then they're also doing, if you're a person who struggles a little bit with like creativity or having a jumping off point, they also host challenges on their Instagram where they do like colors of the month, so that you can participate in those and give yourself kind of a jumping off point. Let's go back to I was going to call it a card, but I guess it could be a card. It's an A2 size anyway. So here I shaded with my greens like I normally would, but I wanted them to be more of a yellow green. And so here is where I went in and kind of just glazed over those greens with my yellow. And it certainly did tint it to more of a yellow green that absolutely worked, just like it would work with, you know, my other alcohol markers that I've used. And I was super happy with the way that they turned out. I think that that's something that is very important because it allows you to cut down on the colors that you own. So I won't have to go buy a bunch of OLO yellow green markers because I know with the greens that I have, I can put that yellow over top of it and get the shade hue that I want and be happy with the way that looks. So now here I'm coloring the flowers onto the left and the right with that kind of intense purple. And then I'm going to blend this into that red coral color. which you may think would be problematic, based on, that they're just a little farther apart on the color wheel. But really, they had no issues once I, use the lighter colors in the center of the petal to blend them. They didn't really have any problems. So if you try these and you find that you have, you're more heavy-handed or you have a little bit more issue with the bleeding, the paper that she recommended to me, which I have not tried yet, is the Express It paper. I have not tried that one yet, because like I said, I wanted it to be a true, genuine review based on the supplies that I would normally use and what you've seen me use here for years on my channel. But super impressed with them. And I like that it holds, like I like the little half marker option that holds as much ink as a regular sized marker. Does throw me a little bit that there's two colors on one marker. That will take some getting used to from me. But these have been on the market now, I think for like a year, 2 years, year and a half kind of thing. And have multiple friends who have used them, loved them, raved about them. And so I think that I think it was pretty accurate. These are pretty fantastic. So with that said, we're not going to not have story time, even though we're doing a review. Several of you, when I did my last review, were extraordinarily encouraging. Thank you so much about me kind of drawing my own things. And I will tell you that I had some companies reach out to me, hey, are you interested in illustrating? Which is so flattering. It really genuinely is. But ultimately, I feel like it is important to support those who support you. And so while I'm not saying no across the board to ever, working for other companies, the company that originally sent me a message on Instagram with my pen and paper or with my pencil sketches on my dispatch pad while I was at work and was like, hey, we would buy that stamp. And then, other people who have supported me, who have helped me grow as an illustrator, as an artist, those people are the people that I was like, hey, I might be interested in doing this. Are you still interested? And I am happy to say that I sold my first stamp set, and it was I'm so excited about it. But it was so much like totally different work than what I am used to. And you guys know that I encourage you in your crafting, in your card making, in your different adventures, whatever that may be for your hobby, that I encourage you to not give up and to figure out how to fix things. It is wildly frustrating when you are a beginner and you have no idea how to fix anything and you're like, oh my gosh, I understand that you're telling me there's a problem, but I don't know how to fix the problem. And that's pretty much what happened to me with my first stamp set. So I drew it, I turned it into a digital file, I then vectorized it, and in the process of turning it into a vector file, which is what you need in order to produce it as a stamp, some of the detail was lost. So I redid it. I sent it again. This time the files were too large. I was like totally at a loss. I'm like, I don't understand what to do. I called my friend who's been in the industry for 25 years. And I'm like, listen, this is my problem. How do I fix this? And I was like, this is the idea I had. And she was like, yeah, you can do that, or you can do this. So I went back and did that, and like six times a charm, I'm not really sure, we finally got it. Praise Jesus. And so I am super grateful for you guys to encouraging me. I obviously will be sharing that. I can't share it with you now because it's not, while I drew it, it's not mine. It is the company's now product. And so it's when it comes time to be released, of course, I will be sharing that with you. Just know that that's on the horizon, and I'm very, very excited for that. So back to what we're doing here. I really wanted to, you guys know I like a lot of color variation, so I kind of wanted to explore more of that. I did shading on these leaves with a navy and then blended it out with a blue green. I think it's a little bit, because there's another color on the back of the marker, sometimes it can be a little bit confusing about what color I am using. Normally you can see the back of the marker when I'm coloring, and it's, you know, the same, but this time it's not the same. So keep that in mind. So now that all the coloring is done, I wanted to go in and add a little shadow, which I did with my grays. I didn't really notice too much of an issue with it, like picking up the other color, though that certainly is a possibility, but just, you know, something to keep in mind when you're doing those shadows in those lighter colors. I prefer to do my shadows down and to the left, but you can do whatever works for you, or you could totally leave the shadow off. I just like that it gives it a little extra dimension. Again, I probably won't even turn this into, I toyed around with doing some hand lettering in the center of it, and I couldn't get anything down that I liked. So I just let it be what it was, which was just the illustration as I drew it, without any lettering or sentiment or anything like that. Also added the gel pen with the white highlights. I did use the 0 marker. Oh, I forgot to tell you that. I'm sorry. So the white is the 0. The black are the brush nibs, and gray are chisel nibs. That's how, like, the barrel colors denote what kind of tip it is. So I did go in with the 0 marker. I realized that I never really tried it out to see how it worked. And again, it is comparable to any other colorless blender or 0 marker that I've used with other alcohol inks. It worked just as well. And then that is it. That's the whole illustration. So if you are interested in them, please use that discount code, save yourself some dollars. Otherwise, if this was not for you, that's totally okay. I love that there's so many things on the market for everybody's different style. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.